Okay, I'm out of the way.
Call to order of the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Meeting.
Mr. Staples.
Yes?
Mr. Blevins.
Here.
Mr. Labatt.
Here.
Mr. McMahon.
Here.
Mr. Morrow.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Reagan.
Here.
We have a quorum? Was the public notice posted appropriately?
Yes.
Is there any member of the public that would make a comment? There being no member of the public, there being no comment. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 27th, 2021 meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And Mr. Chairman, I will point out in the minutes for the March 30th meeting, we had a series of resolutions that were tabled that we gave resolution numbers to, that we would ask if somebody could make a motion to amend that, just to remove that numbering system. They should not have been numbered once they were tabled. You know how our resolutions are 21-03-17, it should just be XX, so.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to accept the financial report for April, May, June, and July of 2021?
Second.
Any discussion?
Quick note on April, one thing to note is your marketing expense, $20,000 of that represents the elder group. In May.
The elder group, not meaning old people, but the elder group meaning a specific company.
Correct. May, you had typical transactions, including some Newell building expenditures that were later reimbursed by the PDC. You'll also see some RDBG adult ed expenditures. As of last week, we have completed that grant and we will be able to submit to the USDA to get our funding back. So that has been completed as far as expenditures.
How much does that amount to?
About 57, I think it's 57,000.
57,000?
And we were able to serve about 7 more individuals than we anticipated.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Report of committees. Nominating committee. Mr. LeBaff, Chair.
The nominating committee, after great lot, as always, we come on some days, and hi there. We nominate Brian W. Staples for chairman, Ernest LeBaff, vice chairman, Lynn Blevins, secretary treasurer. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it, so ordered. Also, the board unanimously approves the following: Patrick Kelly, chief executive officer, Kim Gilbert, chief financial officer, law firm of Silver and Collins, agency general counsel. And we recommend that. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, so approved.
Thank you. That being completed, staff report. Patrick Kelly.
Yes, in addition to the appointments you just made, we want to pass out an updated version of our organizational chart, which the primary change on this organizational chart, and we've talked about this before as part of staff, is Richard Williams moving from facilities manager to a project manager position. It's effective the first of the year. Rich has been doing for all of this year a significant amount of project development work related to solar projects, related to general project development activity. It's a more accurate and adequate reflection of his role. The only other minor change is, you'll see for some of the facilities work, we're going to shift some of what Brian was doing now that we have another business developer in Bob. So Bob will be doing much of the business generation work, Brian will be helping him, but we'll also be focusing on some of the facility upkeep and keeping an eye on our properties and others that we're marketing.
So in essence, Mr. Williams has been acting as the project manager since the beginning of the year,
Correct.
fulfilling those duties.
Correct.
And we're just recognizing that fact now.
Yes, yep. And we have a governance meeting that we'll need to have, I think, next month, where I'm looking at roles of staff and who's doing what and making sure that we've got everything lined up properly. So if there's any other adjustments that we need to make, we'll come to you in the future with them. But this is it for now.
Mr. Pinkerton?
This is for the IDA.
Oh, gotcha.
Do we need to approve this, or?
Yes, I would recommend that somebody make a motion.
Go
I
ahead.
move to accept.
Second?
I'll second.
Second by Andy. Discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Just as an update, we signed the closing documents for 5 solar projects last week, 2 in Madrid, Oswegatchie, Stockholm, and Waddington. We have 1 slated for this week in Governor. I say we signed the documents because we're waiting for the complete closing packages to be returned to us. The Northern Border Regional Commission, we received notice that the $450,000 rail bridge repair application we had submitted for Dunn Paper is not approved. There is this year a Forest Groups product special program. You may recall a couple of years ago, we applied through that program for the North American Forest Group sawmill facility in the town of Oswegatchie. We're going to put an application together for Dunn for their project through that program. We are still waiting. We had also applied for a Department of Transportation rail infrastructure grants on behalf of Dunn Paper and Alcoa. Still no word yet on those applications, so we'll keep you posted as we hear.
Are these federal or state?
That the NBRC is federal, the DOT one is state. Property update, the Newell Building, Chairman Staples, members Blevins and Reagan toured the Newell Building, the work in process on Friday. We have a Property Development Corporation meeting after this where we'll talk a little bit more about the Newell Building, but just to let the board know that the project is well underway. Appreciate you walking through the building and seeing the progress. Business mixer events, some quick marketing notes. We mentioned in Kim's finance report some of the business solicitation work we have going on. We've also had business mixers in the county now. We had one in Rensselaer Falls in April. We did one in Ogdensburg in May. We had one in Governor at the Visitor Center in July, and our next one will be in September in Messina, likely either at the golf course or at the new intake property. And we'll let everybody know as those get scheduled. That's our activity to try and get businesses together with one another where we facilitate the conversations. Obviously, we're there to talk about what we do and what we have available through the IDA and our partner organizations who attend these events. A lot of the focus has been on workforce, finding workers, training workers, retaining workers. A challenge right now everywhere, but it's here as well. We also, as part of our outreach, speaking of workforce, I handed out the letter that Ernie was kind enough to write and send to Major General Eagle at Fort Drum. Chairman Staples had suggested that knowing that we have good ties with Fort Drum, it would be a nice opportunity if we could reach out to them. Ernie, with his military background, seemed like the appropriate person to lead the charge, so to speak. And we did do that letter, and then Lori and John last week were actually at Fort Drum for a tour, talking about the process where retiring soldiers transition into the local workforce in the region. In light of the ongoing challenges that companies are having finding workers, we certainly don't want to leave a resource like that unaddressed. Anything you want to, Lori, I put you on the spot, or John, anything to point out about that visit?
Nothing more really than what you had to say. We're gonna continue to meet with them and attend career fairs, have what they call table meetings with soldiers, and so we'll be quite involved.
I'm one of them, I said those. Any questions about that?
To the note of the letter, I happened to see just a news report on Spectrum that there was a change of command. And I don't remember the name of the general, but he spoke of outreaching to the communities, and that was going to be a priority of his. And that's when I contacted Patrick and said, I think that, I mean, we have Governor, we're southern part of the county. If we're the first one to respond, maybe he will remember us, whatever, we'll at least be at the top of the list. And I'm sure there's Navy, Air Force, and Army represented here, but I thought the letter would better come from a distinguished corporal in the Army. I noticed you didn't put Corporal Labatt. That's the reason for the letter, and that's the reason for having her sign it.
Any questions about that?
There's no officers here? Weren't you an officer?
I was just a sergeant.
Okay.
That's one, never mind.
I know what it is.
All right, COVID outreach is still underway, still active with the reopening task force, fielding questions from companies, a lot of questions right now about the changing guidance. The CDC has put guidance out, there are no, the executive orders have lapsed, but there are still information pieces coming out about masking, about vaccinations, about, and the questions are, it's the range of industries, it's retail, it's small business, to large manufacturers. We're trying, working with public health, willing to do what we'll call on-site pop-up vaccination events.
Is everybody vaccinated here?
I am.
I
I think so,
I'm glad. I'm asking because I have a concern.
yes.
All right.
The county is willing to go on site and do vaccinations if they can get a minimum of 6 individuals to agree. So we're talking with employers right now saying, if you have a cohort of 6 and we can get them on to your location. And we've done some on site, like that's good public health.
Is this the first, second, or third, or just the first and the second?
This is still the first.
Still the first.
Yeah, the challenge is getting to that first vaccine.
Yeah.
The
The FDA just approved.
Pfizer for,
Just so you're aware, SUNY Canton is mandating students get it within 35 days.
the colleges, both for students and for staff, have been very proactive with that requirement. What we're doing right now is if we can find an employer who has 2 individuals, we're looking nearby, can we find 2 more, 4 more somewhere else to put these groups together? Census,
I'd like to ask Mr. LeBaff a question, a little bit off the record. Do you remember the first 2 weeks in the Army?
Yes, I do.
Did anybody ever ask you?
Nobody asked me, or I wouldn't have did it.
And how many shots did you take the first 2
I
weeks?
think it was 8 or 9 that first time.
Yes, first day, right?
Then when I went to Korea, they give you more.
I had a total of 23.
May I say one thing? When I was trained to be a combat medic, we had to practice on each other, giving each other shots. And boy, your arms at the end of 2 or 3 days were sore.
Thank you, Corporal.
All right, Sarge, anytime.
well, John, if you need a volunteer at one of these clinics, I suspect we have somebody who's talented. Census results, if people have not seen, the census results were released at the county level in the last week or so. Our population official number is 108,505, which is down 3.1% since 2010. It's the lowest it has been since the 1950 census. Most rural counties across New York State saw similar results around us. Jefferson had a slight gain of a little less than 0.5%. Lewis was down 1.9%, Franklin was down 7.8%, Essex was down 5.1%, and Clinton was down 2.8%. When you look statewide, the growth, such as it was, and there's less growth in New York than other areas, but there was growth in New York State, was centered around the larger, New York City was the big winner in terms of population growth, but then
I wonder why.
either suburban or urban upstate counties was where the growth was for the most part. It's a challenge we're aware of, obviously, generating workforce, generating customers, generating business and economic activity, is especially difficult with a falling population. Unemployment, 5.7% was our most recently available number. Our employment, the employed population is 39,300. Unemployed 2,400, that's a 100 gain in the employed figure and a 100 less than the unemployed figure since April. These are June's numbers.
What was the employment number?
The employed individuals number was 39,300. So the total workforce was 41,700, which was an increase of 100 since the last update I gave you in April. In the employed number, total workforce number stayed the same. New York State's unemployment rate, and these are June numbers, New York State's unemployment rate for June was 7.7%. Andy McMahon has suggested that we have a regular, we report for the LDC, the loan information at meetings, a dashboard, I guess, of economic indicators. We're working on that. This is some of these numbers are what you would expect, or what we'd expect to provide you on an
I mean, like
ongoing
employment,
basis.
unemployment,
Yeah.
inflation.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yep, just, and it would be probably provided in the packet, and I wouldn't necessarily go through everything, but if there's something of note, we cover it.
Is that in the packet for us, or is that something
It
that
will-
he wants to put online?
No, it would be for the whole board.
But not online, not on,
We have some of the information on our website now. It's what we would call and what we would specify for you would probably be, that would go out, that would be in the meeting packet that's on the website that everybody can see.
okay.
No, I wonder if a lot,
I thought it would just be for me so I could lord the extra information over these guys.
I'm wondering if all the loss of jobs we've had, like in Messina where we used to have several thousand working, but that had a reason for some of the drop in the population. Some of the people just left the area, but
Oh, absolutely.
in 1983, it's just 1983, we had 2,500 at Alcoa, 1,800 at General Motors, 800 at My Local. I think we have less than 800 in Messina right now working at it, the two groups.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, in the last 20 years, the highest number I can remember for our total workforce is about 51,000. So
What year would that be?
it was probably in the early 2000s. I have to look back. So our total workforce right now, 41,700. So it's a drop of about 20% from the high. I mean, typically it was more around 50,000, but it's 16,000 or 16% drop in the total workforce.
When I started at Alcoa in 1951, 7,000 worked there.
Yeah.
7,000 worked in Messina.
And we have in our agenda, we have the resolution about the prisons, the correctional facilities. And you've seen loss in Alcoa, at General Motors, we've lost, the Kraft plant here in Canton, Intel. I mean, the numbers are certainly related to the job loss we've seen in some of the higher, the name recognition companies. And again, similar in the other counties I named. I mean, it's not, it's a story of rural America, in particular upstate rural New York. But it highlights the importance of keeping the jobs that we have. Whether it's the jobs at Alcoa, whether it's Corning, whether it's the Ogdensburg or Gouverneur Correctional Facilities, we have no margin or ground that we can afford to lose. And the numbers pretty much indicate that.
Yeah, so much of the outside analysis of us from government is how many new jobs do we create? And with us, I think it's how many jobs do we save?
Amen. I agree with that. When you talk to people about the idea, that's what I was telling. It isn't just to create jobs, to protect the jobs we already got, we have, because a job today is worth a lot in this county.
Absolutely.
By the way, speaking of jobs, I had to call up Pat Curran, recommending the person he hired. And we had a discussion. I was shocked. He has 10 trucks ready to roll. He cannot get truck drivers.
All over.
And he has good pay and benefits and everything. Cannot get the truck drivers.
How is our program at ATC doing, or SUNY Canton?
It is doing good. That Kim pointed out, we put $57,000 of USDA money into scholarships in the program. The challenge is keeping the classes full. Making sure there's students to be trained to learn how to be drivers, so places like Pat can hire. I mean, the jobs are there.
And that they stay here.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly opportunity for people who take advantage of that program at places like Pat.
But doesn't it cost for an individual $5,000 to go through that?
It's I think $6,500.
How much?
6,500.
That's pretty hard for an individual.
Our program helped a lot of individuals.
But if you don't have the program, you're not gonna do it. You can't afford it.
Correct, and we're working with the Workforce Development Board on their funding sources. We're working with employers to try to get them to contribute some. We sought out the funding through the USDA. The alternative costs more and it's further away. So I mean, it's $6,500
Yeah.
is certainly an issue, but it's still a better deal closer to home than anybody can get trained anywhere else for the program.
So when we say 6,500, that's after the money we've kicked in?
No, that's total, that's prior.
For lack of a better term.
Okay, so a kid who applies, who wants to enter that program. How do,
Kid or an adult, anyone.
Anybody.
how do they access this money that we have made available?
If they apply through the Crest Center, we're in contact with them fairly regularly, as well as.
If
we-
they apply to the school, are they automatically routed to whoever it is that hooks them up with the money that we've made available?
Yes.
And so what do
I
they,
understand the money that we've made available has now been fully spent,
so there currently is no money
not through us.
for the new kids?
There is through the work.
One stop. They've been helping.
Career Center.
They've been able to assist some individuals with up to 5,000. So they're helping greatly also.
It's retail 6,500, net 1,500 is what they're paying.
Yeah, we were
15,
going.
25, 3. I mean, it's different. Some employers kicked in, some participants had more available. We tried to make sure we were able to help as many as we possibly could.
But they also qualify for student loans and things of that
Sure.
nature, right, to pay for it. One of the big things that was keeping them here, that in the day when they were producing nurses, I remember every spring there would be a plane that would come from Texas.
Grab them.
Load 30 them on and take them down, interview them in Texas. They'd train them here. State would spend all the money training them, and then they were.
Gone.
But yeah, there's pretty good connectivity between the program and the service providers.
Yeah.
The funding providers. And there's a pretty active effort on our behalf trying to find and talk with companies about supplying students to the program as well. So as we're out talking with companies, we're trying to make sure they understand that this program's here and that, you can take, if you have somebody who's driving a forklift in a facility and you need a driver and there's an interest in an upward path, there's a way to connect everybody here locally and get the training done.
Now, so if you've got somebody who's interested in the program, what do they do?
What do you mean?
They apply to the program.
Potential app.
They contact the Crest Center and proceed with applying.
So they contact the Crest Center or they contact the college?
It's the same, one in
It's a college, one in the
Education
same
center.
place.
Let me ask you this way, Jim, what if somebody came to you?
I've got somebody who came to me.
So
So
what would you do?
what do I tell
Send them to us.
them? Send
We'll
them
make the
to
connection.
the IDA?
Yeah, I mean, you being, anybody in this room, if you have somebody who's interested in a program, a training program anywhere, send them to us and we'll make sure they get routed the appropriate way.
Okay.
That's, I mean, and I would say that.
Who do you want me
any
to speak
program.
to?
What's that?
Who do you want them to ask for?
They could ask for Lori, they could ask for Kim, they could ask for me, they could ask for John, there's
Any of us.
any others. And then what we also need, what we're doing is looking for future funding streams to help them with. Because it was a one-shot deal that we successfully accessed through the USDA. It'd be nice to replenish that.
I had in Maine, they called them license 3 to drive a tractor trailer. They're really, really not difficult to drive forward. Difficulty I had was backing them up. Never went anywhere with it.
We can.
No. I just
I don't know if
remember,
there's a scholarship out there for it.
I just remember the horror, the whole night,
Comprehensive economic development strategy, working on the update to that, the census information, and everything we're talking about falls under the umbrella of relevant information and data points for the SEDS.
class 3.
The semi-annual report was provided to you. This will go through, Mr. Reagan to the rest of the board of legislators. We wanted you to see it first though, and then we'll go forward with Jim on sending it out to the full board. It walks through some of the project activities we've had so far this year. This is something we provided as part of our review with the county for them, a semi-annual report. This will also go with our financial statements over to them, and then at the end of the year, they get all of our annual reporting, the larger document, and then all the information that also goes to the budget office and the comptroller. We're trying to dress up a little bit in the annual report with some project pictures, just to break up the monotony. And when we do our annual report this year, we're gonna work on a little, even more eye-catching and appealing format for this, because it's been this way for about 10 years, so we're ready for a change.
Steve and I were talking about the pictures do add value. And
Yeah.
fill in a joke about me not being good with words and better with pictures, but they do.
They catch
tell a
your
story.
Yep,
And the
I
map,
agree.
the map showing
project locations.
locations around the county. I think
This is the
that,
best one you put out yet.
that speaks volumes, when county legislatures gets us report on the cover, it should have a map showing projects all over the county so that they are aware that we're doing things in their communities. Because, whether they read the entire report or not, will often depend on whether or not they're aware there's stuff happening in their communities. And since, many of them labor under the misapprehension that we're not doing things in their communities, we need to drive that point home to them over and over again that we are, and that many of the major employers in their communities look to this body for assistance with all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
That's a good idea. I mean, if they read a report that's in there, for the ones that don't read the report and just look, that's as far as they'll go and they'll know. God bless.
Thank you.
The last thing is, I believe Kim handed out disclosure forms, as you
Yes.
know, the Office of the State Comptroller has been doing an audit of the for the last 3 or 4 months, and they requested that people fill in the disclosure form that we provided as a second form. It's easier than the annual disclosure that's due already, so if people can get that completed and to us in the next day or so we can turn them around and send them back to them, that would be appreciated. You can stay late if you want.
Yeah, they're quite quick to complete, so there you go. I knew you had it.
That is it for your staff report.
Old business, there being none, new business. Resolution, support for the continued operation of the New York State
Second.
Correctional Facility, St. Lawrence County. Moved and seconded, discussion.
But I touched on it a few moments ago, on some jobs. I think obviously everybody knows there's a transition in New York State government at midnight tonight. So I think it's timely that we reach out to, you'll see the elected officials, who we would send this to. There, in the budget, are plans for closing correctional facilities, for eliminating beds in the system. Have not heard, there were some rumors earlier in the summer about, the imminent nature of closure announcements, haven't heard anything. Historically, the county and the communities have been proactive and aggressive in welcoming and defending these facilities. This letter will just be something that we hope gets to the new governor early, that reinforces this historical effort.
Lori, could you tell me, has the motion been made and seconded?
Yes, the resolution.
There being no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Is there a need for executive session?
There is none.
Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're out of here. Oh, we have one more.
Oh, she, bye-bye.
Done?